Captain Jake Morrison had been hauling cargo across the galaxy for 3 years now, and he'd learned exactly 2 things about interstellar commerce. First, never ask what's in the unmarked containers. Second, customs officers everywhere were the same brand of suspicious, no matter how many legs they had. Today's lovely specimen was Quelix, an insectoid who looked like a praying mantis had a nervous breakdown and decided to wear a uniform about it. All 4 of his eyes were currently bulging at Jake's cargo manifest like it had personally insulted his mother. "This says produce," Quelix chittered, his mandibles clicking with what Jake had learned to recognize as extreme anxiety. "From Earth." "That's right." Jake leaned against the doorframe of his freighter, the SS reasonable excuse, trying to look as harmless as possible. Which, given that he was 6 feet of human in a leather jacket with 3 days of stubble, was not particularly harmless. But he was trying. "And you're aware that Earth is classified as a Class 4 death world? I live there, so yeah. Kind of figured that out." Quelix's antennae twitched. Not a good sign. Jake had seen that twitch before, usually right before someone decided to search his entire ship bolt by bolt. The insectoid pulled out a bioscanner, one of those fancy galactic hub models that could detect a single spore of contamination from 100 meters away. He pointed it at the crate labeled Grandma's Preserves in Jake's admittedly terrible handwriting. The scanner screamed, not beeped, not chirped, screamed. The kind of sound that meant either imminent death or someone had just discovered their spouse was cheating. The readout flashed red, then purple, then colors Jake was pretty sure didn't exist in human visible spectrum. "Biohazard level 9. The scanner shrieked in 3 languages simultaneously. "Toxicity fatal. Corrosive compounds detected. Recommend immediate evacuation and sterilization protocols." Quelix dropped the scanner and stumbled backward, all 6 of his limbs flailing. "What is in that container?" he wheezed. Jake glanced at the crate, then back at the hyperventilating customs officer. "Rhubarb," he said. "Was gonna check if it's ripe enough for pie." All 4 of Quelix's eyes somehow managed to bulge even further. "You were going to eat the bioweapon?" "It's not a weapon. It's a vegetable. Technically a vegetable. There's some debate." The scanner detected lethal compounds. "Yeah, in the leaves. You don't eat those parts." Quelix made a sound like a tea kettle having a panic attack and slammed his primary manipulator on the emergency alert button. Jake sighed. This was going to be a long day. The hazmat team arrived in under 4 minutes, which Jake had to admit was impressive. Less impressive was the fact that they were treating his grandmother's rhubarb like it was a thermonuclear device with abandonment issues. Station Security Chief Tormund was not someone you wanted to meet in a dark alley, or a well-lit alley, or really anywhere if you valued your internal organs remaining internal. He was 7 feet of scaled muscle, with a face that suggested his species had evolved specifically to intimidate customs violators. His voice sounded like gravel being chewed by a garbage disposal. "You," he rumbled, jabbing a clawed finger at Jake, "are under detention pending investigation of biological weapon smuggling." "It's fruit," Jake said, for what felt like the 100th time. The bioscanner registered toxicity levels consistent with Class 7 neurotoxins. That's because rhubarb leaves have oxalic acid. But again, and I really cannot stress this enough, you don't eat the leaves. You eat the stalks. Tormund's eyes narrowed into slits that could probably cut steel. "You're telling me this plant has parts that kill you and parts that don't, and humans just remember which is which?" "Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that complicated." Behind the blast-proof glass they'd erected around Jake's cargo bay, Quelix was performing what looked like last rites over the bioscanner, which was still flashing warning colors and making sounds like a distressed dolphin. Tormund pulled up a holographic display and began scanning through data. His face, which Jake hadn't thought could look more horrified, somehow managed it. According to the Galactic Agricultural Database, this rhubarb contains anthraquinone glycosides, oxalic acid, and multiple compounds that interfere with calcium absorption. "Sure, in the leaves. Why would you cultivate something like this?" Jake shrugged. "Makes good pie. Sweet, tangy, goes great with strawberries. My grandma used to make it every summer." "Your grandma was handling neurotoxins recreationally?" Quelix's voice cracked from behind the glass. "She was 78 and made the best pie in 3 counties. Look, do you want me to list all the things humans eat that are technically poisonous? Because we're gonna be here a while." Tormund crossed his massive arms. "Proceed." "Okay. Almonds have cyanide. Cashews are related to poison ivy and have to be processed or they'll kill you. Kidney beans are toxic raw. Apple seeds have more cyanide. Cherry pits, peach pits, Apricot pits, all cyanide. Potatoes have solanine, which is why you don't eat the green ones. Nutmeg is a hallucinogen if you eat enough. Tomatoes are nightshades. Raw cassava has enough cyanide to drop an elephant. Quelix made a whimpering sound. Oh, and chocolate is poisonous to most Earth species, including our own domesticated animals. But humans love it. Put it in everything. Cake, cookies, drinks, you name it. Tormund's holographic display was now frantically pulling up files on Earth foods. Each entry seemed to make his scales pale slightly. This is insane. This is Tuesday, Jake said. You want to see the peppers I packed? There are more. Quelix shrieked. Dude, calm down before you molt. Tormund held up a clawed hand. You will demonstrate the consumption of this rhubarb. We will observe. If you survive, we will reassess. If I survive? I've been eating this stuff since I was 6. Medical team to Cargo Bay 7. Tormund barked into his comm. Prepare for potential fatality. Jake looked at the armed guards, the hazmat suits, and the growing crowd of aliens gathering to watch what they clearly assumed would be his demise. You guys are really making a big deal out of pie ingredients. Your species eats poison for dessert, Tormund growled. Everything about this is a big deal. Jake was now standing in what could only be described as a biological containment theater. The hazmat team had set up blast-proof glass on 3 sides. Medical sensors were pointed at him from every angle, and at least 40 station personnel had gathered to watch the crazy human potentially die from his own groceries. He held up a stalk of rhubarb like it was evidence in a trial, which, technically, it was. Okay, so this is the stalk. Red, fibrous, perfectly safe. You can eat it raw, but it's super tart, so most people cook it with sugar. He took a bite, chewing deliberately while maintaining eye contact with Tormund. The medical sensors went berserk. Every screen showed his vital signs spiking as his taste buds registered the sour flavor, which apparently looked identical to a poison response to alien medical equipment. He's dying, someone in the crowd shouted. I'm fine, Jake called back, mouth still full. It's just sour. Quelix had his face pressed against the glass, all 4 eyes wide with morbid fascination. How are you still standing? Because it's food, not a weapon. Jake swallowed and took another bite just to prove his point. Humans have been eating this for centuries. We literally put it in pies and give it to children. You feed poison to your juveniles? Tormund looked like he was reconsidering humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. It's not poison if you X. Eat the right part! The cargo bay doors hissed open, and Jake's day somehow got better and worse simultaneously. Doctor, Penny Osworth strolled in, coffee mug in hand, looking entirely too amused by the situation. She was the only other human on Theta 7 station, a xenobiologist who'd spent the last 5 years studying why humans made other species nervous. Apparently, she was about to add to that research. Hey Jake, she said, sipping her coffee. Heard you started an international incident with produce. Intergalactic incident, Jake corrected. Get it right. Tormund's attention swiveled to the coffee mug. What is that beverage? Coffee. Why? Scanning. He pointed a device at her mug. It immediately started beeping warnings. That contains caffeine levels that would cause cardiac arrest in 73% of registered species. Penny grinned. Yeah, it's a double shot. Needed the pick-me-up. You're consuming a cardiac toxin voluntarily? Well, when you put it like that, you make it sound bad. She leaned against the glass. Should I tell them about the chocolate bars in my quarters, Jake? Please don't. Or the ghost peppers I'm growing in hydroponics? Penny, for the love of... Oh. Or we could discuss fermented foods. You guys know about kimchi? Sauerkraut? Yogurt? We literally let our food rot in controlled conditions, and then eat the bacteria. Quelix's legs gave out. He collapsed to the floor, antennae drooping in defeat. Cheese! Penny continued, clearly enjoying herself now. We let milk go bad for months, sometimes years, until it develops mold, and then we put it on crackers. Some cheeses have live mites in them. On purpose. Stop talking, Tormund commanded, but his voice had lost its authoritative edge. He sounded tired, defeated. Like he'd just realized he was part of a galaxy that included humans and their death-wish cuisine. And alcohol. Penny was on a roll now. We drink ethanol. You know, the stuff you use for fuel and disinfectant. We ferment various plants, distill the results, age it in wooden barrels, and then drink it for fun. Some of it is 40% ethanol by volume. This explains so much about human diplomatic incidents, Tormund muttered. Jake finished his rhubarb stalk. Look, I'm fine. See? No death, no seizures, no spontaneous combustion. Can I please just deliver my cargo and go home? The station. AI's voice chimed in, smooth and unhelpful. Analysis complete. Human dietary habits show a consistent pattern of consuming materials classified as toxic, poisonous, or hazardous across 89% of known species. Conclusion. Humans possess either remarkable resistance to toxins or a collective death wish. Possibly both. Thanks, AI. Super helpful, Jake said. Quelix raised one shaking limb from the floor. The cashews. You said cashews. Tell me more about the cashews. Oh, buddy, you don't want to know. Tell me. Penny set down her coffee. They grow on trees with a false con, fruit attached. The nut is inside a shell that contains urushiol, the same chemical in poison ivy. If you try to crack them open raw, you get chemical burns. They have to be roasted to break down the toxins before they're safe to handle, let alone eat. Quelix made a sound like air escaping from a balloon and didn't move again. Is he okay? Jake asked. He's having an existential crisis, Tormund said flatly. I'm considering joining him. 20 minutes later, Jake was still standing, still alive, still somewhat annoyed that this was how he was spending his afternoon. The medical sensors had finally stopped screaming, though they occasionally beeped with what Jake interpreted as confused disapproval. Tormund was reviewing the data with the intensity of someone trying to find a logical explanation for magic. Your metabolic readings show no distress, no cellular damage, no neural degradation. Yeah, that's generally what happens when you eat food, Jake said. This shouldn't be classified as food. This should be classified as endurance challenge. Penny was still there, now actively making things worse because apparently that's what friends did. She'd pulled up a holographic display of Earth's agricultural database and was scrolling through it like she was reading horror stories to children at bedtime. Oh, here's a good one. Fugu. It's a pufferfish that contains tetrodotoxin, one of the most lethal poisons known to exist. There's no antidote. Chefs have to train for years to prepare it safely. And humans eat this why? Tormund asked, though he sounded like he'd given up expecting a rational answer. Because it's delicious and the danger makes it exciting, Penny said cheerfully. There's even a saying, I want to eat fugu, but I don't want to die. People eat it anyway. Your species weaponized natural selection against yourselves. We prefer to think of it as spicy dining. Jake snorted. Speaking of spicy, you want to tell them about the peppers? Or should I? Oh, I got this. Penny pulled up another file. Humans actively bred plants to be more painful to eat. Capsaicin triggers pain receptors, literally makes your body think it's on fire. The Scoville scale measures how much pain a pepper causes, and humans compete to eat the most painful ones. The crowd of aliens had grown. Someone was taking notes. Jake was pretty sure he'd just become a case study. But, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. And humans compete to eat the most painful ones. We have competitions, Penny continued. People eat Carolina Reapers, which rate over 2 million Scoville units, for fun. Some have ended up in emergency medical care. They do it anyway. There are video recordings. It's considered entertainment. Quelix, who had been retrieved from the floor and given some kind of alien sedative, whispered, Why? Adrenaline rush, Jake said. Also, they taste good once you get past the pain. Get past the pain, Tormund repeated slowly. You acknowledge the pain and proceed anyway. Pretty much. The station AI chimed in again. Accessing. Human cultural database. Found entry. Hot dog eating contests, where humans consume processed meat products at dangerous speeds. Found entry. Cinnamon challenge, where humans attempt to consume ground bark in quantities that cause respiratory distress. Found entry. Tide Pod challenge. Okay, that one was stupid, and we all agreed it was stupid, Penny interrupted. Don't judge our entire species by internet trends. I'm judging your entire species by the fact that you have a category called internet trends that apparently involves eating non-food items. Fair point. Jake decided to move things along. Look, can we discuss the real issue here? Which is that I have a delivery schedule and you're making me late over pie ingredients. Tormund pulled up another screen. I'm looking at your other cargo now. Coffee beans, cocoa powder, vanilla extract, which apparently contains alcohol, black pepper, cinnamon. Every single item on this manifest is flagged as containing some form of toxin, irritant, or psychoactive compound. That's just the spice rack. My dude, your spice rack would be classified as chemical weapons on 47 registered worlds. Their loss. Food without spices is just sad. Penny leaned over to look at the manifest. Oh, you got good cinnamon. The salon stuff? Yeah, figured I'd splurge. Nice. The cheap cassia cinnamon has way more coumarin. That's the compound that causes liver damage in high doses. Every alien in the room turned to stare at her. What? Penny shrugged. It's fine in normal amounts. You'd have to eat like a stupid amount to actually cause problems. How much is a stupid amount? Tormund asked carefully. I don't know. Maybe a few tablespoons a day for weeks? No one does that. But they could. Technically, yes. Someone could poison themselves with cinnamon. But someone could also poison themselves with water if they drank enough. Dosage matters. The station AI, apparently feeling left out, added, human saying, detected. The dose makes the poison. This philosophy appears to guide human food safety standards, which are considerably more relaxed than galactic average. Relaxed is a generous term, Tormund muttered. Suicidal might be more accurate. Jake grabbed another stalk of rhubarb. You know what? I'm taking this as a compliment. Humans are tough enough to eat things that would kill most of the galaxy. That's pretty metal. Metal? Quelix asked weakly. Cool. Badass. Impressive. You're impressed by your own poor survival instincts? Hey, we made it to space, didn't we? Can't be that poor. Penny raised her coffee mug in a toast. To humanity, too stupid to know what should kill us, too stubborn to die when it tries. Jake clinked his rhubarb against her mug. I'll drink to that. Please don't drink anything else, Tormund said. My cardiac system can't take it. Tormund made a decision that he would later describe in his incident report as necessary for station safety and my own sanity. He pulled up the complete galactic agricultural database, cross-referenced it with Earth's botanical records, and projected the results onto the main holographic display in the cargo bay. What followed was essentially a horror movie for anyone who wasn't human. Let's start with something simple, Tormund said, his voice taking on the quality of someone who'd already given up, but felt obligated to see things through. Tomatoes. A three-dimensional model of a tomato appeared, rotating slowly. It looked innocent. Friendly, even. Red and shiny like something that should be safe. Member of the nightshade family, the AI narrated helpfully. Contains solanine and tomatine, glycoalkaloid poisons that cause gastrointestinal distress, confusion, and in sufficient quantities, death. Leaves and stems particularly toxic. We put them on everything, Jake said. Salads, sandwiches, pasta. We made an entire cuisine around them. Italy built a cultural identity on tomato sauce. Your species built a culture around nightshades, Quelix said, his voice hollow. He'd recovered enough to stand but looked like he regretted that decision. Wait until you hear about potatoes, Penny added. The display shifted. A potato appeared, somehow looking more menacing than a root vegetable had any right to. Also nightshades, the AI continued. Contain solanine. Green potatoes contain dangerous levels. Sprouted potatoes contain dangerous levels. Nonetheless, potatoes are a staple crop on Earth, consumed in massive quantities daily. We French fry them, Jake said. Mash them. Bake them. Boil them. There's like 100 ways to cook a potato. Do any of these methods involve removing the poison? Tormund asked. The poison is mostly in the skin and the green parts. You just don't eat those. Or you do eat the skin because it's got fiber and nutrients, but you make sure it's not green first. A technician in the growing crowd raised a tentacle. So you perform a visual, safety inspection before consuming poison? I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. The display cycled to the next item. An apple, shiny and red, the kind that fairy tales said was safe. The fairy tales were wrong. Apple seeds contain amygdalin, the AI said. When digested, converts to hydrogen cyanide. A sufficient quantity of seeds can be lethal. Yeah, but you don't eat the core, Jake said. You eat around it. What if you accidentally consume seeds? Quelix's antennae were vibrating with stress. Then you accidentally consume seeds. Your body can handle a few. It's only a problem if you're grinding up hundreds of them and eating the powder. And who does that? Penny coughed. Some health food movements, actually. Okay, yes. Some people do that and it's stupid, and we tell them it's stupid. The display continued its parade of horrors. Cherries appeared, their pits highlighted in ominous red. Cherry pits, peach pits, apricot pits, plum pits. All contain amygdalin. All convert to cyanide when crushed and digested. We just don't eat the pits, Jake said. Are you seeing a pattern here? Humans are actually pretty good at figuring out which parts of things are safe. Through what process? Tormund demanded. Trial and error? Mostly, yeah. I mean, that's how evolution works. Evolution is supposed to select against eating poison. It did. The people who ate the wrong parts didn't have kids. The people who figured it out did. Natural selection in action, baby. The display shifted to something that made even Jake wince a little. Kidney beans. Raw kidney beans contain phytohemagglutinin, the AI intoned. As few as 4 or 5 raw beans can cause severe nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Classified as acutely toxic. You have to cook them thoroughly, Penny explained. Boiling for at least 10 minutes breaks down the toxin. If you cook them at too low a temperature, like in a slow cooker, you actually concentrate the toxin and make it worse. So the cooking process itself can make the poison more effective, Tormund said slowly. Only if you do it wrong. How many humans do it wrong? Penny shrugged. I mean, enough that there are warnings about it? But most people are fine. Most people. Death by bean is pretty rare. But possible. Technically, yes. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even the station's background hum seemed quieter, as if the facility itself was processing this information with growing concern. The display moved to mushrooms. Several varieties appeared, some that looked nearly identical to each other. Mushroom identification requires extensive knowledge, the AI stated. Many edible species have toxic lookalikes. Deathcap mushrooms resemble edible varieties and contain amatoxin, which causes liver and kidney failure. No antidote exists. So we wrote field guides, Jake said. Studied them. Humans have been successfully eating mushrooms for thousands of years. And unsuccessfully? Tormund asked. I mean, yeah, sometimes people eat the wrong mushroom and die. But that's why we have the guides. You rely on visual identification to distinguish food from lethal poison. You're really hung up on this. Because it's insane. The display cycled faster now, as if the AI had given up on detailed explanations and decided to just overwhelm them with data. Nutmeg appeared. Hallucinogenic in large doses. Contains myristicin. Then cassava. Contains linamarin, which converts to cyanide. Must be processed extensively before consumption. Then elderberries. Raw berries, leaves, and stems contain cyanogenic glycosides. Must be cooked. Oh, we make wine from those, Penny said. Elderberry wine is traditional in some regions. You ferment the poison, Quelix whispered. We ferment everything. That's kind of our thing. The display stopped on something that made Tormund's scales actually rattle. A bar of chocolate. Theobromine content lethal to canines, felines, and most non-primate Earth species. Toxic to over 90% of registered galactic species. Humans consume in massive quantities for pleasure. Chocolate is a gift from the universe, Jake said. I will die on this hill. You might die from it, Tormund said. That's the point. Worth it. The AI pulled up consumption statistics. Annual human chocolate consumption, 7.7 million tons. Annual human coffee consumption, 10 million tons. Annual human alcohol consumption, 35 billion liters. All contain compounds classified as toxic by galactic standards. Penny was scrolling through the database now, finding new horrors to share. Oh, you guys missed peanuts. Causes fatal allergic reactions in some humans. We still eat them constantly and just let people know they might die. We put warning labels on food. Warning labels, Tormund repeated. You label food as potentially deadly and consume it anyway. Only if you're allergic. Most people are fine. Most people. You're really stuck on that phrase. Jake decided to be helpful. Look, here's the thing. Humans have this ability called taste. We can detect bitter compounds, which are usually toxic. We can taste sweet, which usually means sugar and energy. We can taste umami, which means protein. Our bodies literally evolved to help us figure out what's safe to eat. And yet you ignore those warnings to eat bitter toxic plants anyway, Tormund said. Because we learned that some bitter things are safe if prepared correctly, and some of them taste good once you get used to them. Coffee is bitter, beer is bitter, dark chocolate is bitter. All delicious. You train your bodies to accept poison. We call it acquiring a taste. The station AI, now apparently fully invested in making this worse. pulled up one final entry. Accessing human cultural practice. Alcohol tolerance. Humans regularly consume ethanol in social settings. Regular consumption leads to increased tolerance, requiring larger quantities for the same effect. This is celebrated as holding your liquor and considered a social achievement. We're literally proud of our ability to process toxins more efficiently, Penny said with a grin. Quelix sat down again. I need to lie down. You are lying down, Tormund observed. I need to lie down more. A voice came from the back of the crowd, belonging to a small, blue, gelatinous alien that Jake didn't recognize. Question: do humans know they're doing this? Doing what? Jake asked. Eating poison. Are you aware that your diet would kill most of us? Jake and Penny looked at each other. Not really, Jake said. I mean, we know some foods are weird to other species, but it's just normal food to us. This is just Tuesday, Penny agreed. The blue alien quivered. Earth cuisine should be classified as extreme sport. Motion seconded. Someone else in the crowd called out. Tormund closed the database display with a gesture that looked like defeat. I'm forwarding this entire incident to the Galactic Food Safety Administration. This requires a policy review. Does that mean I can go? Jake asked hopefully. After I add warning labels to every single item in your cargo hold. How many labels? All of them. Every language, every species. If something can read, it's getting warned about your grandmother's rhubarb. It took 3 hours to label everything. 3 hours of Tormund's team carefully affixing holographic warning stickers to every crate, box, and container in Jake's cargo hold. The labels flashed in rotating languages. Toxic to most species. Human consumption only. Contains lethal compounds if consumed by non-humans. And Jake's personal favorite, Earth produce. Approach with caution. His crate of rhubarb now had 17 separate warnings and what appeared to be a small hazmat symbol. This is excessive, Jake said, watching a technician apply the 8th warning label to a bag of coffee beans. This is necessary, Tormund countered. He looked exhausted. His scales had lost some of their luster, and he had the expression of someone who'd spent too long contemplating humanity's place in the universe and come away with more questions than answers. Do you know what happens if a Quelix accidentally ingests chocolate? I'm guessing something bad? Cardiac arrest within minutes. Their biology can't process theobromine. At all. He gestured to Quelix, who was sitting in the corner, still looking like he'd witnessed the end of days. He'll need psychological counseling after this. His species has excellent memory. He's going to remember every single thing you told him about human food for the rest of his life. That seems dramatic. He watched you eat something that registered as lethal on every single scanner I have. Then you asked for seconds. It was tart. I needed to cleanse my palate. Tormund made a noise that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. It was hard to tell. Your cargo is cleared. You have authorization to depart. Please, for the love of all that exists in this galaxy, leave before you tell us about another food that should be illegal. I mean, I wasn't going to bring up the lutefisk, but get out. Jake grinned and headed for the cargo bay ramp. Penny fell into step beside him, still carrying her coffee mug like it was a trophy. That was fun, she said. You have a weird definition of fun. Come on, admit it. You enjoyed watching them freak out. A little, Jake conceded. Though I do feel bad about Quelix. He'll be fine. Probably. Maybe. I'll send him a fruit basket. Please don't. They reached the cargo bay entrance, where station personnel were still maintaining a respectful distance from Jake's ship like it might explode, which, given what they now knew about its contents, wasn't entirely unreasonable from their perspective. So, Penny said, when you get home and make that pie, save me a slice? Obviously. Payment for backup during the Great Rhubarb Incident of 2725. I prefer to call it the day we discovered humans are a biohazard species. We're not a biohazard. Tell that to Tormund's incident report. Jake was halfway up the ramp when Tormund's voice crackled over the station comm system. Morrison. One more thing. Jake turned. Yeah? The cinnamon in your cargo. How much did you buy? I don't know. 3-4 kilos? Got a good deal at the last port. There was a long pause. Then quietly, what do you need 4 kilograms of cinnamon for? Baking, mostly. Cinnamon rolls, snickerdoodles, apple pie, chai tea. Scanning database. Cinnamon. Contains coumarin. Hepatotoxic in large quantities. Daily safe limits. Another pause. You bought enough cinnamon to exceed safe consumption limits for 3 years. Yeah, but I'm not eating it all at once. But you could. Technically, yes, I could poison myself with cinnamon. I could also poison myself by drinking too. Much water. What's your point? Every alarm in the cargo bay started going off simultaneously. Red lights flashed. The hazmat team, which had been in the process of leaving, reversed direction and started suiting up again. Are you serious right now? Jake called out. It's cinnamon. It's 4 kilograms of a compound that causes liver damage. Tormund's voice had gone up an octave. We just cleared your cargo and now you tell me you have enough hepatotoxin to kill yourself. I'm not going to kill myself with cinnamon. You also said rhubarb was safe. It is safe. The scanner disagrees. Penny was laughing so hard she had to lean against the ship's hull. Coffee sloshed out of her mug. Several aliens jumped back like it was acid. Jake pinched the bridge of his nose. Okay, how about this? I promise, on behalf of all humans everywhere, that I will not consume 4 kilograms of cinnamon in one sitting. I will use it in reasonable quantities for baking purposes only. Does that work for you? Define reasonable quantities. A teaspoon here, a tablespoon there, normal cooking amounts. And if you exceed normal cooking amounts, then I'll have made too many cinnamon rolls, and I'll share them with my neighbors, who are also human, who also won't be poisoned by reasonable amounts of cinnamon. Tormund was silent for a long moment. Then, with the weariness of someone who'd fought a battle and wasn't sure if he'd won or lost, he said, Fine, but I'm adding another warning label. Of course you are. And a quantity restriction notice. Sure. And a disclaimer that Station Theta 7 is not responsible for any self-inflicted cinnamon poisoning. Whatever gets me off this station. The alarm stopped. The hazmat team, looking disappointed that there wasn't another crisis, began to disperse again. Quelix remained in the corner, rocking slowly back and forth. Jake gave Tormund a mock salute and headed into his ship. Penny followed, still grinning. You know what the best part of this is? She said as the cargo ramp closed behind them. What? Somewhere right now, there's a bureaucrat at the Galactic Food Safety Administration who's about to receive Tormund's report. They're going to read it. They're going to pull up Earth's agricultural database. And they're going to have the same existential crisis we just witnessed. Jake settled into the pilot's chair and began the launch sequence. Think they'll actually classify Earth cuisine as an extreme sport? Oh, absolutely. I give it 2 weeks before there's a formal inquiry. Maybe a month before they require special permits for human food transport. We're going to be legends. Legends who can't ship groceries without 17 warning labels. Still legends. The SS Reasonable Excuse lifted off from the station, leaving behind a traumatized customs officer, a stressed security chief, and approximately 40 aliens who would never look at produce the same way again. As they cleared the station's flight perimeter, the comm crackled one last time. Morrison, Tormund's voice said, sounding more tired than angry now. For what it's worth, I hope your pie is good. Jake smiled. It will be. That's what makes it worth the trouble. Humans, Tormund muttered. Insane, all of you. The comm clicked off. Penny raised her coffee mug in a toast. To humanity. The only species crazy enough to turn poison into dessert and call it tradition. Jake clinked his water bottle against her mug. And that's how Earth cuisine got classified as an extreme sport by the Galactic Food Safety Administration. Or will be, in about 2 weeks. Think we should warn people back home? Nah. Let them find out the fun way. The ship jumped to FTL, carrying its cargo of warning-labeled produce toward Earth, where humans would continue doing what they'd always done, eating things that probably shouldn't be eaten, surviving anyway, and wondering why everyone else in the galaxy was so worried about it. Somewhere behind them, Quelix was still in therapy. And Tormund was writing the longest incident report of his career, with a title that would become famous in galactic bureaucracy. Risk Assessment of Human Dietary Practices. A case study in survival against logic. The report's conclusion would be simple. Humans are, by any reasonable measure, insane. But their pie is apparently worth it. Further research required. Psychological support requested.